Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing great, and today I will be discussing with you three hard boundaries questions. Now all of you must know that boundaries is a part of standard English conventions, which is almost 26% of the entire paper. So that means boundaries carry around 13% or 14% of the entire paper. Now overall, if I tell you the concept, right, the concept of boundaries is all about joining sentences. So it talks about how we can join different types of sentences and how we can work with the different types of punctuation in doing so, right. It also has the uses of different punctuation marks, so we have to understand how that happens. In this video I have cherry picked three questions. There are a few more concepts as well, but I have cherry picked three questions that we do encounter very frequently on the SAT, and I will be discussing these three questions today so that you guys can have a clearer picture on how to solve these questions. Obviously all the questions on the SAT are repetitive, so if you understand a type of question once, obviously you will be able to do it again and over again, right? So that is not going to be a problem for you. So let's start with the first question for today. Now this question, it says, in a 2016 study, Eastern Washington University psychologist 𝗂𝐸 found that among the study participants who experienced frisson, a psychological response akin to goosebumps or getting the chills while listening to music, there was one personality trait that they scored particularly high on: openness to experience. Now, the sentence is the first sentence. If you look at it closely, it is ending on high on, right? So over here, if you write this, right, if I write it over here, so this is ending on this part, right? And if you see what is written after this, it is openness to experience, right? And needless to say, the questions that you will have for all the questions of standard English conventions, whether it is boundaries or it is form, structure and sense, it is going to be consistent, right? Like we have it over here. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of a standard English? It is going to be the same, but you have to work out that convention after looking at the option choices. So if you look at the option choices, you have a period over here, you have a semicolon over here, you don't have any punctuation over here, and you have a colon over here. So the difference of options is telling us that this pretty much looks like to be a question from boundaries, right? And if we look at it over here, so the second part is, it's not an independent sentence. So if we have two independent sentences, we can join them using a period, we can join them using a semicolon. Obviously we cannot do that over here because the second sentence is not there. But if we look at the meaning of the sentence, the first sentence is telling us about a trait or discussing a trait that they scored particularly high on, and the second sentence is telling us openness to experience. So this openness to experience is what? This is a trait. So the first sentence is telling you that there is a trait, and the second part of it, or the part that is preceding it, which is obviously dependent, that is telling you what that trait is. So it looks like to be that the second sentence is the explanation of the first part, right? So it has to be what? It has to be the explanation of the first part. So we have to look for colons if we want to look for explanations, right? So we don't have it over here in option A, we don't have it in B, and we don't have it in C. So the answer over here is going to be option D, because we need explanation and there is only colon that can help us do that, right? So option D is going to be the answer over here for this question. So the next question that we have, if we read it, it says, in 2018, a team of researchers led by Dr. 𝗂𝐸𝐴 compiled every available measurement of ocean mixing rates from the past 2 decades. With this novel data set, the team was able to determine how current-driven mixing varies across regions and what impact it has on the distribution of heat and nutrients in the ocean. So if you look at it, obviously this sentence is a list, right? Because you have and over here, and what's written after it, it's not an independent sentence. It's not, right? Again, so this is the first part of the list. The team was able to determine. What was the team able to determine? The first one was how current driven mixing varies across regions. This was the first part that they determined. And the second part was what impact it has on the distribution of heat and nutrients in the ocean, right? So this is the second part that they determined. So that is how it works. Now if you have these two parts and if you have this as x and y in a form of a list, so we have to understand, if you have a list that has two components or that has three or two elements, right, you will never use a comma in that list. But if you have a list that has three components, so for example, if I make it x, y and z, then you have to have, or you have to write commas in that list. So that is how it normally works. So over here we don't need anything, we don't need any punctuation mark, right? So obviously option A cannot be your answer. There is no description, that is why option B cannot be your answer as well. And obviously the second part is not an independent sentence. You cannot start it with and it is the part of the first sentence already. It is telling you what he was determining. So obviously it cannot be a semicolon as well. So it's only going to be option D that can be your answer, because it is determining and it is a part of the list. So you don't need any punctuation mark, like I told you, if you have two components in the list. So this is a hard part, because normally students, they do quote commas, or they take it to be the they take this sentence to be an independent sentence and they use semicolons, and they make such mistakes. So that is why it's very important to understand where the sentences are ending and all of that, right? Now let's look at the third sentence. Third sentence is a bit different and it carries rules that are pertaining to independent sentences, right? So if you read it over here, it says researcher 𝐿𝐸 developed a process for increasing the tensile strength measured in gigapascals or GPa of silkworm. By dissolving and reweaving the silk in a solution of iron metal ions, zinc and sugar, Z increased the amount of force required to stretch it from approximately 0.5 GPa to 2 GPa. Now, if you have to understand, the first sentence is ending over here. So, increasing the tensile strength measured in gigapascals or GPa of silkworm, right? Silkworm silk. So, you end it over here. This sentence is ending over here. So you have one independent sentence, and from by, if you read it onwards, the second sentence will also be independent because it starts with by and it ends over here. So when you have two independent sentences, there are 5 ways to join them, right? So what are those 5 ways? You can either join them with a period, you can join them with comma and fanboys, right, or what we call coordinating conjunctions, or you can join them with semicolons, or you can join them with semicolon conjunctions and commas, or you can join them with colons if the second part of the sentence is independent, and with that it is the reason of the first sentence as well. So these are the 5 choices that you have if you want to join two independent sentences, right? So over here, if you look at the options, which is the option that has any one of these 5 options, you have to look for that option. So if you look at option A, it has a comma but it does not have these fanboys. So if you join two independent sentences using only a comma, it becomes a comma splice error, right? So this cannot be your answer. If you look at option B and C, now the problem with option B and C is that both the sentences do not have a comma. You have to understand, if there is no semicolon, period or colon, then obviously you need to have a comma. That's the only thing that you can use to join the two independent sentences. And when you do not join when you join two independent sentences without using a comma, whether you have the connective or not, that is incorrect, and this error is called run on fragment. You can write it down. When you join two independent sentences without using a comma, whether you have the connective after it or not, like in option B, you do not have the connective, but in option C, you have the connective. But both of them, because they don't have a comma, they will be considered as run-on fragments and they both will be incorrect. It's only option D in which you have a period over here, and period is one of the ways in which you can join two independent sentences. That is why option D will be your answer. So what you need to understand is that it is very important for you to recognize and understand whether the sentence that you are working on is independent or not, because that is what will tell you which strategy or which option or which punctuation you have to go with. That is the first thing. So you have to understand that independent sentences are the ones that have verbs, that have subjects, and they have complete ideas, whereas the dependent ones are those who lag in the independent ideas. They don't form a complete sense, right? So that is very important, and as you practice, you will understand how you can, check on independent and dependent sentences. That is the very important thing. So these were 3 hard boundaries questions. We'll be coming up with more videos with different type of questions, telling you how you can solve them. Do subscribe to our channel and let us know if you have any questions in the comment section. Thank you so much. This was Talal Hussain.